Welcome to today's deep dive. I'm thrilled to have you here because our mission today is to unpack a remarkably dense, just incredibly provocative philosophical essay from January 2023.
Yeah, it's quite a read.
It really is. It's by an author named Su Feng, and it carries the rather imposing title, The Watershed Between Being Unrestrained and Restrained in the Face of Death.
Which I know sounds incredibly academic,
Totally.
but the core of this text is actually intensely practical. I mean, it takes everything we assume about how to live a good life
Yeah.
and just turns it completely upside down.
It really does. And to understand how it does that, I want you, listening right now, to try a very specific thought experiment.
Okay.
Because we spend the vast majority of our lives operating under this unspoken assumption that we have an abundance of time. You know, we build 5-year plans, we schedule meetings weeks in advance, we buy green bananas.
Right, we just assume tomorrow's a given.
Exactly. But imagine for just a second that your timeline abruptly collapses. Imagine you found out with absolute, undeniable certainty that you are going to die tomorrow.
It is the ultimate compression of reality. Just the immediate collapse of the future into a span of roughly 24 hours.
Yes. And the question Shui Feng poses isn't about, like, what you would do with those final 24 hours.
It's not a bucket list scenario.
No, he's not asking if you'd go skydive or eat an entire chocolate cake. It's entirely about your internal state of mind. Like, could you honestly live today completely unrestrained, completely carefree, no panic, no frantic rush to tie up loose ends, just totally at peace with the abrupt end of the line?
And most people, if they strip away the bravado and are entirely honest with themselves, would admit they couldn't.
I know I couldn't.
Right. There would be this desperate scramble. You'd have frantic phone calls, logistical nightmares regarding who gets the house, profound terror at the sudden darkness.
Absolutely.
But the text argues your reaction to that exact hypothetical scenario isn't just an interesting psychological quirk. According to Xu Feng, your answer to this question completely defines what kind of being you are.
Which sets the stakes unimaginably high. I mean, this isn't a personality quiz.
No, not at all.
The author lays out a vision where your level of anxiety in the face of death literally determines your cosmic destination. The way you face the end dictates the beginning of whatever comes next.
And to understand the mechanics of that destination, we really have to look at the stark binary the text presents. It's a rigid either-or scenario regarding how consciousness transitions out of the physical body.
Yeah, so let's lay out that binary. Outcome number 1. If you face death and remain completely unrestrained, meaning you are carefree, joyful, totally unbothered by the fact that the clock just ran, congratulations.
You did it.
Right. The text explicitly states that you have become a celestial being and your consciousness elevates. You basically get to go to heaven.
Which is a definitive reward for achieving a very specific, highly refined state of being.
But then we have outcome number 2. If you face death with chaos, anxiety, fear, and a heavy sense of regret over what you were leaving behind, well, you are merely human.
Just human.
And because you are merely human, you will be reincarnated right back here on Earth.
What's fascinating here is the absolute lack of moral judgment in that second outcome.
Oh, totally.
Because often, spiritual traditions frame the fear of death as a failure of faith, like a weakness.
Yeah, like you didn't pray hard enough.
Exactly. But Xu Feng isn't pointing a finger and calling the anxious person a coward or a sinner. He is simply categorizing the reaction.
It's diagnostic.
Yes. The chaos, the fear, the frantic desire for more time, these aren't framed as moral failings. They are framed as the definitive, unavoidable symptoms of the human condition.
That makes a lot of sense.
If a doctor sees you have a fever, you have an infection. If you have anxiety about death, well, you're human.
I find that deeply relieving, honestly, because society puts this immense heavy pressure on us to be stoic when the end comes.
We do love stories of people facing death with a brave smile.
We really do. But I struggle with this expectation because when I try to genuinely imagine my own sudden death, my panic isn't some abstract fear of the void.
What is it then?
It's the fear of being abruptly evicted from an apartment I've spent my entire life furnishing.
Oh, that eviction metaphor perfectly captures the physical and emotional tethering the text describes.
Right, think about it. If your landlord suddenly pounds on the door and says, you have to be out by tomorrow morning and you can't take anything with you, your immediate reaction is pure, unfiltered panic.
Of course it is.
You are stressing about your security deposit. You are agonizing over the photo albums you have to leave on the shelf. You are wondering where you're going to sleep.
You are massively invested in that physical space.
Exactly. It seems entirely unfair for any philosophy to expect someone to just toss the keys on the counter, leave all their treasures behind, and walk away whistling a happy tune.
And the text actually agrees with your pushback there.
Mm.
Walking away whistling requires a profound level of detachment that is mathematically unnatural to someone who has spent decades building a life inside that apartment.
Yeah.
The whistling isn't a human behavior. It's an alien one.
But if this fear is just a symptom of our earthly attachments, we have to look at the anatomy of those attachments. Like, what exactly are we holding on to so tightly?
What's in those boxes we're packing?
Yes. What is in those boxes we are so desperately trying to pack when the landlord knocks?
Well, Xu Feng provides a very specific ledger of what constitutes our worldly resume. He identifies the burdens keeping us tethered as earthly ties, heavy debts, and deep emotional entanglements.
And I want to make this tangible for you, the listener. If you open up your calendar app right now or look at the to-do list on your fridge, you are looking at exactly what Xu Feng is talking about.
It's all right there.
The text lists things like having to support your aging parents, raising your children, guarding your property or your company.
Everyday responsibilities.
Exactly. He mentions unresolved affections, the messy, complicated relationships we are still trying to figure out. He mentions unpaid debts. He even points to the burning desire to build a career, achieve success, and bring honor to your ancestors.
And when you lay all those examples out, you realize something fundamental about human nature.
What's that?
These aren't minor errands. These are the core pillars of human civilization. These are the structural beams that hold our communities together.
Wow, yeah.
The text asserts that if you are burdened by these things, if your mind is occupied by your parents' health, your kids' education, or the survival of your small business, you simply cannot be carefree.
You just can't.
The mathematics of your attachments prevent it. The absolute best you can hope for, according to the essay, is to manage the stress well enough to avoid sighing and being miserable all day long.
Okay, let's unpack this because I feel some serious heavy friction with the text right here.
I thought you might.
I mean, are taking care of your vulnerable aging parents, providing a safe life for your kids, and building a company that employs people universally considered to be the ultimate good thing?
They absolutely are.
These are the exact actions we celebrate. We build statues for people who dedicate their lives to their communities. So why does Woofeng frame our absolute greatest acts of love, responsibility, and legacy as the very baggage that keeps us spiritually grounded and full of anxiety?
It is a brilliant, jarring paradox, and it's the engine driving this entire philosophy. We celebrate those acts of dedication because they are good for Earth.
Right.
They're essential for the perpetuation, safety, and stability of human society.
Right.
But from the perspective of cosmic liberation, from the perspective of ascending to become a celestial being, those exact same virtues are lead weights.
Dead weights.
Yes. Consider what love, in its purest human form, actually does to your perception of time.
Well, it makes you care deeply about what happens tomorrow.
Exactly. And that care is the trap. When you deeply love your child, you are instantly terrified of a future where you aren't there to protect them.
Oh, sure.
When you love your aging parents, you carry a crushing obligation to ensure their comfort until their final day. Love, in the earthly sense, is a mechanism of profound attachment.
It really is.
It creates an ongoing narrative that you desperately want to see through to the end. Therefore, love is the primary generator of anxiety in the face of death, because death is the ultimate non-negotiable interruption of that narrative.
Man, that completely flips Western philosophy on its head.
It really does.
Because we are obsessed with legacy. We are taught to leave our mark, to put our name on a building, to build generational wealth, to ensure we are remembered.
Yep.
And Zwifting is essentially saying that leaving a mark is leaving a chain. Being a quote-unquote good person on Earth, building a legacy, is exactly the mechanism that guarantees you are going to be stuck on Earth.
The text explicitly links these virtues to the reincarnation cycle. Because you have unfinished business, a child left to raise, a symphony left unwritten, a family name to uphold, your consciousness, your soul, is pulled right back into the gravity well of the human realm to continue the work.
Wow.
You are, quite literally, too invested in the outcome of the game to walk away from the table.
So, since our daily responsibilities, our deep loves, and our desire for legacy are all framed as chains tying us down, we really have to look at the exact recipe the text gives for complete liberation.
We do.
If love and responsibility keep us trapped, what does the text demand we do to break the cycle?
The criteria for liberation are incredibly extreme. The text demands a total systemic purge.
The purge.
Yeah. To be truly unrestrained, You must be completely free from worldly ties, completely free from debts, and harbor absolutely zero emotional entanglements.
Zero emotional entanglements. I mean, that alone feels impossible.
But the list goes further.
It does. It says you can have no burden in your heart, no earthly desires whatsoever, and this is the detail that really stopped me in my tracks. No worries about whether or not you have food to eat tomorrow.
That's a huge one.
Right. You
Okay.
cannot pursue fame, you cannot chase after profits, and you must maintain a state of mind where you are ready at any given second to, quote, shake hands and embrace death with joy.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, there is an even more surprising requirement hidden in Shefeng's recipe for liberation.
What's that?
The text states that to be truly unrestrained, you cannot even harbor the extravagant hope of eternal life.
See, I spent a long time trying to wrap my head around that specific line. It feels like a massive contradiction.
It really does at first glance.
Right, because in almost every major spiritual text across history, the entire goal is eternal life. You follow the rules, you detach from sin, and your reward is immortality. How does wanting immortality prevent you from achieving it?
Because hoping for eternal life is still a form of spiritual greed.
Interesting.
The pursuit of eternal life implies that you want more. You want more time, more existence, more experience for your individual consciousness. It is a desire.
Okay, I see.
And within Schwething's framework, desire is the heavy element that weighs down the soul. True liberation requires surrendering not just your earthly desires for food and family, but your cosmic desires as well.
I think the best way to visualize this is to think about trying to achieve escape velocity in a rocket ship.
Oh, I like that.
The gravity pulling the ship down to Earth is your love, your attachments, your responsibilities. To break orbit, you have to let go of that weight.
Right.
But if you secretly desire the launch itself, if you are obsessed with reaching the stars and living forever, you are essentially packing extra fuel and cargo onto the ship. The heavier the ship gets with your own spiritual ambition, the more impossible it becomes to break orbit. You can't even desire the launch.
That is a phenomenal way to explain the physics of desire in this essay. The ambition to transcend becomes the very mass that prevents transcendence.
Which brings a very tough question directly to you, the listener. Look at your life right now. Could you honestly reach a state where you don't care if there is food in your pantry tomorrow?
And it's crucial to understand the text isn't describing clinical depression or apathy here.
Right, it's not giving up.
Exactly. It's demanding a state where you are genuinely joyful and ready to embrace whatever happens, even starvation, as just another passing neutral moment. It describes an almost unimaginable state of psychological buoyancy.
Unimaginable is the perfect word. And if that level of absolute detachment feels functionally impossible for a normal person trying to survive a Tuesday, it raises a glaring, unavoidable issue with the text.
Which is?
Has any human being in history actually pulled this off?
Well, the author anticipates this exact skepticism. He poses the question directly within the essay. He asks, can anyone achieve a life free from worldly ties, debts, and attachments?
And his answer provides the ultimate twist of this entire deep dive.
It really does.
He admits that for ordinary people, achieving the state is nearly impossible. And then he drops the hammer. He says, if someone does manage to achieve it, if someone actually lives completely free of debt, emotions, survival anxiety, and spiritual greed, they are certainly not an ordinary person anymore. In fact, they are no longer human.
The text provides a taxonomy of what they must be instead. If you can sustain this absolute detachment, you must be a celestial being, or a Buddha, a god, a spirit, a monster, or a demon.
A monster or a demon. I absolutely love that he throws those in there.
It's such a specific inclusion.
Because absolute detachment isn't inherently holy or benevolent. A psychopath is detached.
True.
A demon wouldn't care about raising kids, paying off a mortgage, or supporting an aging mother. Absolute detachment is just fundamentally alien to the human experience, regardless of whether it manifests as holy serenity or demonic indifference.
That is a crucial structural distinction. The detachment signifies a difference in the actual species of being you are, not just a marker of pure moral goodness. Now, the text does mention that in this world there is a specific group capable of achieving this state, identifying them as the Chanyuan Celestials.
We need to pause and clarify that term because it sounds incredibly cryptic. What exactly is a Chanyuan celestial? Like, is he talking about angels walking among us?
Not quite. To understand that, we have to look at the broader context of Swifing's work. Chanyuan Celestials refers to members of Lifechanyuan, which is a specific spiritual community founded by the author.
Okay, got it.
Within his philosophical framework, these are individuals who have actively dedicated themselves to shedding traditional earthly ties like conventional family structures, personal property, and individual debts.
To live communally.
Exactly. To live communally and align perfectly with what they call the greatest creator. So when the text mentions them, it's pointing to a specific group of people attempting to actively live out this radical detachment, essentially trying to cross that evolutionary threshold while still in physical form.
So they are attempting to hack the system and live as aliens on Earth.
Essentially, yes.
But for the rest of us outside that specific community, the title of the essay finally clicks into place. The watershed between being unrestrained and restrained in the face of death. Think about what a watershed actually is in geography. It's a dividing ridge, a physical boundary that separates two completely different drainage basins. The water on one side flows to a completely different ocean than the water on the other.
A literal divide.
Exactly. The text literally states, becoming a celestial being is the watershed. Being unrestrained isn't a human skill you can practice on the weekends. It is a trait and privilege exclusive to celestial beings.
This raises an important question about how we are supposed to apply this essay to our lives.
Yeah.
Is Xue by strictly defining this state as a non-human privilege, actually telling us to abandon the pursuit of perfect Zen?
Which goes against everything we hear today.
Exactly. For decades, the modern self-help and wellness industries have sold us the exact opposite idea. They tell us that if we just meditate enough, read the right mindfulness books, and practice enough detachment, we can live a perfectly optimized, anxiety-free human life while still keeping our jobs and our families.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I am convinced he is doing exactly that.
You think so?
Yes. By classifying being unrestrained as a strictly non-human privilege, the text is actually letting the listener completely off the hook. He is looking at the reader and saying, as a human, never delude yourself into thinking that you can live an unrestrained life.
Stop trying to be perfect.
Stop deluding yourself. We carry so much guilt about our anxiety. We feel like we are spiritually failing every time we panic over a bank statement or worry about our kids walking to school. Xue is telling us to accept that being stressed is part of the human package deal.
It functions as a profoundly anti-self-improvement message. Or, perhaps more accurately, it's a manifesto for radical self-acceptance.
I love that phrase, radical self-acceptance.
If you are human, you will be restrained by the very nature of your humanity. You will care, you will fear the loss of the people and the places you care about.
Right.
To try and aggressively strip that care away while simultaneously remaining an active participant in human society is a fool's errand. You are attempting to run celestial software on earthly hardware. The operating systems are fundamentally incompatible.
Celestial software on earthly hardware. I mean, if you actually managed to force that software to install, if you somehow genuinely stopped caring about your parents, your children, your legacy, and your own physical survival, you would cease to be human.
You would.
You would cross the geographical watershed. You'd become a Buddha or a demon or a Chenyuan celestial, but the fundamental you that cares about the world would be gone.
You would have successfully evicted your own consciousness from the human condition.
So what does this all mean? If we zoom out and look at the entirety of Xue framework today, we are left staring at a truly breathtaking paradox.
We really are.
The exact things that define the beauty of the human experience, our deep, irrational loves, our fierce sense of responsibility, our drive to build a legacy, our heavy debts to one another, are the exact same mechanisms that make us terrified and anxious in the face of death.
We are deeply afraid to die because we deeply love to live, and we profoundly love the people we share that life with.
The baggage is the love. The chains are the connections. To lose the anxiety of death, to face the sudden collapse of your timeline with absolute carefree joy, requires you to systematically cut every single one of those ties.
It's all connected.
It requires you to lose your humanity entirely. The essay forces a choice. You either die an anxious human, clinging filthily to the people you love, or you die a perfectly serene alien, completely and utterly detached from everyone.
That tension leads to a final thought I want to leave you with today. Something for you to ponder as you look back at your calendar, your to-do list, and your beautifully entangled human life.
Let's hear it.
Xue Feng's framework asserts that facing death with anxiety, regret, and a heavy resume of attachments guarantees your consciousness will be reincarnated on Earth. Your attachments act as the literal gravity that pulls you back down.
You simply can't leave the apartment because you're still worried about the security deposit and the family you left sleeping inside.
Exactly. But consider the implication of that mechanism. If our messy attachments, our deep loves, and our frantic anxieties are the exact physics that guarantee our return, could it be that humanity's collective anxiety isn't a spiritual failure we're supposed to cure?
Oh, wow.
What if that anxiety, that desperate, heavy clinging to our worldly ties, is actually the necessary life-giving gravity that keeps the human world populated, deeply connected, and endlessly turning?